Hi everybody, this is Oksana. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Tree of Life bracelet. That's what it looks like. My wrist is too small for it, but there's the back and front of it. So if you want to see how to make this bracelet, then just keep watching. So you're going to need 4 wires that are 16 gauge. You can use other gauges like 14, maybe 18. It might be a little, floppier, but I'm using 16 gauge wires. They are round, dead soft copper and 10 inches long. So I'm going to start with 2 of them. And you just need something that you can shape them around for a small window that the tree part of the bracelet is going to be on. So this is a ring mandrel. If you have some round thing that, a bottle or something, I actually was going to use the round part of this ring mandrel, and then I looked at it and I thought that this part was kind of neat, and it wouldn't be a round window that my tree is on. It would be, what is this? I don't know. This shape, right? So I thought that I would use it. So what you do, whatever shape you're bending it around, is you take your wire, you kind of center it. See, I'm centering it on there, and I'm bending it around this shape here. It's a little hard because this wire is thick, but then I'm using my pliers. Once I get to like this portion here, just bend it up with my pliers. Oop, it's all wobbly. Here we go. So this part may be slightly difficult, just to get it, see how it's looking a little wonky. So you would want to play around with your pliers, with getting it all nice and even. I would think that doing a round or oval shape would probably be easier than the shape that I chose to do, but just wanted to show you that you can do any shape you want. Alright, so looks like this side is slightly longer, so I'm just gonna try and change that. And then all you do with the second wire, is you want the second wire to follow. There we go. That looks much more even. You want the second wire to follow this shape, but you want it to stay on the outside, which is why I'm not using that mandrel again, because then it would be, exactly the same shape, and I want it to be, to like fit on the outside like this. You know what I mean? So just hold it with your fingers and bend so that you get a shape that this fits inside of. And then you can mess around with it too and get the angles nice and sharp and all that. Probably would be much easier with a circle, but anyways, so once you have your 2 wires where you can kind of stack these 2 things and it fits nicely, I'll have to mess around with it a little bit more, but you can hammer this to make it a little stronger. I'll show you my hammer. So this is a chasing hammer. If you hammer with this side, just gently, just like this portion here, it makes it slightly flatter. I don't know if you can even see. I didn't hammer it a ton, just very gently. So it might look slightly flatter than the rest of the wire. I don't know if you can tell. And then if you use this side, you need some kind of block, like a metal block that they sell at like a craft store. And you hammer it with this side, it makes these like little bumps. So what I did is I hammered the top portion, purely for decorative purposes. You do not have to have a hammer or do any hammering. But see how I hammered that top one, so it's kind of like decorative and bumpy, and the inside one isn't. So totally up to you, don't need to do that. But what you want to do next is do the same thing with your other two wires. Just keep in mind that they're going to go opposite. So here's one of my other two wires. It's going to go like this. And then the second one will go above. Alrighty, so once you have both sides completed, this is, you know, how it's going to go. Put it together like this. If you have a clamp to help you hold it, that's helpful. If you don't, you can still do this. Just kind of hold it with your fingers, just a little bit more difficult, or use maybe some tape or something. Find a way, basically, to have this stay together. And now you need to make sure that all of these wires line up together nicely. And you're taking a weaving wire. This is 24 gauge. It is a thick wire to weave with. If you don't want to, you can use a 26 gauge instead if you feel more comfortable, or use a thinner wire. But this is the one I'm going to use, and the weaving pattern that I'm going to do is I'm going to start here on the very bottom wire. I'm just holding my little tail. I'm starting with one little loop here. I'm just going to go one loop over the bottom two, then I'm going up through here, doing a loop around the next two, and now the next two like this, and now I'm coming in between here. So now I'm just going down by two again. So these two and the next two. So like this. Kind of looks like a little Christmas tree, which is why I'm doing it, to go along with the whole tree theme. And now I'm doing 4 wraps around the bottom, like that. And you can move it. Once you do this, of course I put my pliers already away, but once you do this, you can use your pliers or maybe even just your hands to move this all the way to the bottom, like that, so that it looks nice. So I'm going to go for a little bit. Once you have this going and everything is kind of staying together, you might want to stop. Once you start getting to the end here, you probably want to stop and leave yourself a little tail so that you can weave more if you have to. And do that on both sides. I'm going to do that on both sides, and I'll come back, because then you want to bend this and see if it works around your wrist before you finish this little end section, because everyone's wrist is a different size. So maybe you don't want to make this super long because your wrist is smaller or whatnot. And by the way, the 10 inches that I used is just kind of like, it'll be an average size. I think the average wrist is like 8.5 inches. So we obviously lost some of that distance when we made these bends. So it'll be, maybe for like an 8.5 inch wrist, I'm thinking. But of course, if you want a bigger bracelet, cut longer pieces at 10 inches is what I'm trying to say. So let me finish the weave here and do it here as well, and I'll come back and show you what to do next. Alright, so I did 12 trees on each side. So we'll see if we're getting close here size-wise. I have this bottle, which I think is pretty good for wrist representation, that I'm going to bend it around, and then we'll see how close it is. Obviously everyone's wrist is different. Maybe you have a bracelet mandrel. I don't have one. That's why I'm using this plastic bottle. So, let's see here. That seems like it'd be good, size-wise. Because, I mean, it's going to be a bangle bracelet. You don't want it to be really small, but you don't want it to be too big either, where you have to, like, open it every time to get your hand in there, you know? So, we are going to finish off our ends now. Here's what I'm going to do. So I have this tail that I left, and then this one I didn't cut yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap it around this bottom wire for a bit. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well, just because I'm just going to curl all of these. I'm going to trim them and curl them for decoration. And if one of them has wire wrapped around it, it'll just look prettier. So you don't have to do this by any means. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these about here, because you want to give yourself some room to work with your round nose pliers and make, you know, decorative kind of curl, but this is too long. Right, so I did one side. I trimmed it, and you can see I kind of staggered it. So I have this one that's wrapped around. I trimmed it a little bit, and then I kind of cut the next one a little shorter, a little shorter, a little shorter. I actually had an idea. What if instead of these lining up, you actually did have a space between these, and you kind of had these curls going up, and then these curls coming down? I think that would look cool. You don't have to do it. You can curl these, you know, any way you want. You can have this lining up together. But then since I had that idea, I want this wrapped wire to be here, and then on here I want it to be up here. So see how it would be down here normally if I just kept going with the pattern. So I'm actually going to, let's see here. Actually, I was going to unwrap, but I'm just going to continue with the pattern instead, so that I can get up here. And then once I do get up there to that top wire, right now I'm just going to wrap around that. There we go, like this, so that these kind of mirror each other. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to weave on here, I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to kind of stagger these down just like this side. Alright, so now both sides are done. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I'm going to curl this. Make sure that it doesn't poke out, you know, so this will be on your wrist. And then I'm just going to keep going, curl the next one. Because it's a little longer, it's going to sit up there. I'm going to curl the next one. If you want to hammer these, you can, for them to be, you know, extra strong. And then this one, I'm lining it up with these, and I'm bending it just ever so slightly like this. And now I'm taking the tip of it and I'm making the curl in the opposite direction. So like that. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. Alright, so now that it's completed, here's what it looks like. And now it's time to work on this portion, which is going to be the tree. So we're going to make the tree first. If yours got kind of bent out of shape, You can fix it now. One of mine is just a little bit, there we go, it's just sticking out. Now it's nice and flat and everything's even. All right, so we are going to take some 24 gauge wire and you're going to cut about 16 pieces. You can do 14, you can do 18. I mean, your tree will just look slightly different. It'll naturally look slightly different, as all trees do, because everyone kind of twists them in their own way. But however many tree branches you want, I'm going to do 16. Is that what I said before? I can't remember now. So I'm going to cut it this long, so it's a little bit longer on each side to give myself some extra room to wrap the branches and the roots and all that stuff. And I'm using 24 gauge wire because I'm going to put little stones as leaves on the branches. If you want to just make it without any stones, I would use 22 gauge wire, so it's just thicker and sturdier, but then you might have trouble, you know, getting that through the stone, which is why I'm using this size. Alright, so I cut 14 pieces here. So I am giving myself about an inch for my roots. And then I am starting to twist. Now keep in mind, this tree needs to fit into this frame. So these are going to be my roots. You can twist them some more, or you can just attach them like this. I'm just going to attach them as they are. I'm not going to make like twist. You could twist like these 2 wires, the next 2 wires if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. So this is a good height. Now I'm going to separate this out. And I'm going to take 4 wires. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is an extra one. And I'm going to twist them a little bit like this. I'm going to do that on this side as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's really up to you how you make the tree. There's so many different looking trees out there, so you can just take a peek and get an idea of what you think you want to do with it. So I'm going to twist this trunk a tiny bit more, and now I'm going to split these off at 3 and 3. I'm going to twist that a little bit. Okay, so now if you separate these branches out a little bit, you can kind of work on their placement, how you want them all to go. You can kind of see how your tree is going to end up looking. So here's mine. Here's what it looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and start attaching these. So if you want to take a piece of tape and then tape this so it stays in place, or you can try and hold it with your hand, you can start attaching these roots one by one. So I'm putting it right between those 2 wires that I have there, and then above them both. So I'm essentially making a little loop. You can see that? A little loop around the top wire, like this. And then I'm going to do that one more time. And I'm going to leave that little tail. I'm going to cut it when I'm done. I'm going to cut all these little tails and you pinch it down. But I'm going to do that on my roots. And on the very side ones here, what I'm actually going to do is, here, I'll do one of these right now to show you. I'm going to go around the inner wire, but then also around the outer wire. Because if you don't do that, I'm going to do that on the side here with the roots, and then also up top with the branches, the very side ones there. Because the frame, I can't get it through, because the frame can move around as of right now. So I don't want to necessarily do this with all my roots or all of my branches, because I like the hammered look of that frame and I don't want it to get covered up. Alright, see how that's attached there? But I'm going to do it just on the sides here, and that's going to prevent this frame from moving. See how, like, as of right now, it can move like that. It's going to prevent that. So I'm going to go ahead and do my roots. Alright, so you can either finish all the roots and then move on to the branches, or you can do a few roots like I did here, and then a few branches, and then, you know, work on whatever you want. Because if you are doing just the roots, then technically if you pull too hard or something, your tree can move out of place because this whole top part is not secured. But if you do a few roots and then a few branches up top, then your tree's pretty much secured. It's not going to move up or down. So that's why it may be beneficial to do it that way. So what I'm going to do up here is I put a few beads. I put 4 of these little chip beads. I think it's Peridot. And I'm going to attach, you don't have to do the beads. You can just, you know, do the branches bare. Or you can do round beads, whatever beads you want. But I'm doing these little chip beads. And then I kind of saw when it got to the top, like I couldn't put any more chip beads or it's going to go above here. And then I am attaching it the same way. I'm going to try and pull this a little tighter. There we go, because my my little beads were kind of sliding up and down there. So I'm just going to do a few of these little wraps to make sure that this wire doesn't go anywhere. There we go. And I'm going to do that. The ultimate goal is to do that to all the branches up top, and then the roots down here. So they're going to get all attached, but then I'm also going to bend them like this. Like that, little waves. So that's going to be the finished product. And then I am going to do with the branches up here the way I did with the roots, just to hold this frame together up here, roughly. And after you finish these little ends, so you want to cut them short, and you want to pinch it down so that it no longer is sticking out. So I did that one there, and then all my other ones are just sticking out right now because I cut them short. So you want to do that to all the ends so that you don't feel them. Alright, so I have attached all the roots, I have attached all the branches, and I cut the excess wires here, and I kind of pinched them all down so there's no sharp ends sticking out anywhere. And then another thing that you can do, it depends on what you like, but I like really wavy, bumpy kind of trees, so I just take my pliers and I just twist to create all these bumps. It's kind of hard when you get up in here, but you can still kind of try to twist the branches up there a little bit too. One thing I noticed is that I had quite a bit of wires. I'm used to doing trees without stones on them, so it was really hard trying to squeeze all the branches in here. And what I did, since I had, there was really 2 that I just couldn't fit anymore. See them? I brought them to the back, and I just have them going up the back, and I attached them the normal way, so you can't really see them from the front. But that's how I got rid of the extra branches, in case that happens to you as well. I do like the thicker tree trunk and lots of roots, so I don't know if I would necessarily do a lot less branches. Maybe I would do like 2 less branches. Either that or, you know, hide them in the back. But anyways, so here is the finished piece before it is oxidized. Let me put it on. I have a 5-inch wrist, so that's why things are always loose. But here is what that looks like on. Here it is after being oxidized. And I have a video on how to oxidize copper. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.